value with our superstars, Sabina and Ginger. They'll be walking us through so many cool things, so many things that we haven't discussed for a while. Remember, like, Bobby started this series, it was about post NAR, what's happening to the industry. Everyone was worried that we would be losing a lot of agents. Almost a year after, nothing has happened substantially. Commissions are even staying the same.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
it's interesting to see that, and it's interesting to kind of look at this. But today, our session is going to be jam-packed with full of things that are mostly about moving listings as we go into a slower market. And I think that's the challenge that we're seeing across the country, in both Canada and the US. So today we'll be focusing on that. Sabina, take the floor.
All right, Sam, nice to see you, my friend. It's been a few. I'm very
Likewise,
excited
likewise.
as always to be here with you and your RoomView gang and everyone that's joining us live. Everybody, please remember this is live, which means if you are asking questions, if you want us to clarify anything, please make sure that you put something into the chat in YouTube and we will be sure to jump in there. Sam is usually in charge of questions, so he's going to help us out there as we go. I also was wondering if, just to get the ball rolling here, if you guys wouldn't mind, drop in the chat where you're from, how you're feeling today. If you want to say hello, send us kisses, whatever you're in the mood for, please just drop something in there so that we know that you guys are all paying attention, or at least you're breathing today. So I wanted to thank you all so much for joining us, truly. I mean, I am the founder. My name is Sabina. I am the founder and CEO of HIVEOLOGY. We are your hosts today, along with Sam. And our job has been over many, many years now. We've been doing this for about 25 years or so. Our job is to help real estate agents learn fast and earn faster. That's basically all that we try to do. So we're always focused on developing content for you that will help you build your business. After doing this for that many years, we've delivered over 1 million courses, and frankly, we've learned a thing or two. So we're trying to bring that back to you all and make sure that you guys grow as quickly as you can and get through hurdles in the market like the one that we're talking about today. And Sam, you guys all know, but Sam is our CEO and co-founder at roomvu, serial entrepreneur in the real estate technology industry, building products for real estate agents. He has done a lot of very cool stuff, including being top agent, and then has moved on to build roomvu. roomvu now has 200,000 plus agents across the US and Canada, and over 50 full-time employees and 200 contractors. Congratulations, Sam. I love seeing that you guys continue to grow. Awesome news.
Thank you. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
and
It's
our
thanks to
lovely
amazing
Ginger.
partners.
Oh, that's, I think, well, we count ourselves as a small partner for you too. So that's nice to hear. And our lovely Ginger. So we're delighted and fortunate to have Ginger back again today. Together, we with Ginger have helped thousands and thousands of agents get through last year, and also to focus on how to get deals done in this market and whatever that means, because the market keeps changing. So we need to keep changing with it. Ginger's an active broker, an agent, very experienced and popular instructor. She herself has completed many, many millions of dollars. We like to put the dollar signs in there in real estate transactions. And she has a unique commercial perspective. So getting deals done for her is always interesting because she not only has residential, but also commercial experience. So it's good for us to be learning from her. So she's one of these unicorn successful brokers that's also highly in demand and a highly rated trainer. So thank you, Ginger. We really appreciate you being here today too.
Oh, I'm all excited to see the two of you again, especially Sam. I haven't seen him in a while, so good to see both of you.
I know, really, really, you're probably sick of me by now because we work so much
No,
together.
no,
But
never,
I
never,
love you,
never,
girl.
Sam.
I love you, and I appreciate you being here. So today we're going to work on how a couple of things that relate to for what Sam said. You know, we really want to talk about what we can do about moving listings that are slowing us down. And I think one of the questions I'd love to ask you guys, and Sam, maybe you can tell us what everybody puts in the chat, but tell us where you're at now. What's your average days on market before your listings are selling? And if you can do that along with what city you're in, that would help a lot if you haven't already posted that, because that can give us an idea of whether your market has started to decline in that sense or you're still humming. So please let us know. So here's some of the things we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how to reposition a home without slashing the price. Sam is going to help us with marketing tactics that work when buyer interest is low. what top agents are doing differently to close in 30 days or less, some script ideas or ways to talk about resetting seller expectations when without losing the listing, and how to create urgency in a slow market. Those are some of the things we're going to run through today. But please remember, everything we're talking about works cross-border. This is border friendly, so everything we're going to be going through relates to whatever market you're in. We get people both in Canada and the USA, but also internationally as well. And I will say, though, that please remember, this is not legal advice. Check with your broker, make sure that everything we're talking about works in your particular market and is cool with your broker or your regulator or whoever it is that you want to talk to. So having said all of that, Sam, did we get anybody telling us what their days on market is looking like?
Yeah, so we have Julie, days on market going from 30 to 180 days.
Whoa, that's a big
wow.
change.
That's painful. I don't want to be in your market. Sorry, Julie. 48
Sorry, Julie.
We're going to help you, though.
48 days. About 48 days in Palm Springs, about 57 in Arizona, about 75. I don't know where Donna is, but her days on market went from 40 to 75. So it's a lot of days on market, essentially. We are seeing a lot of that.
Wow, that's really interesting. Well, I'm glad that, you know, we've been hearing obviously from a lot of agents from everywhere that this is a problem. So that's why we chose this topic today. We want to make sure we answer all your questions. So please, like I said, drop any extra questions. If we don't get to it, we'll do our best to get to you after, but we want to make sure that you're letting us know what you need to know. So Sam, if you're good with this, how about we start with the marketing tactics that work when buyer interest is low? What would you tell everybody?
All right. So I think the first thing you want to do is use all the technological things that you have at your fingerprint, right? At your disposal, right? So we are giving you a ton of tools, including staging, virtual staging. Make sure you utilize that, because that essentially shows a potential buyer what this home could look like. I always say this, there's a lot of things that you have to follow, especially if you're putting these images on the MLS. Just make sure you're adding the disclosures and everything else, that this is a before and after kind of staged photo. Sometimes I even recommend keeping the original photo and the staged photo so they can see that this was staged immediately and they get to see the picture. That's one of them. That's an easy one. You don't have to pay anything. You don't have to pay anyone, and you can do it. The second thing, so we got Bob here, and he was commenting, and I wanted to show this to our audience, since a lot of us are actually using roomvu. So make sure you're adding a narrative before a listing is showcased on the social media. So in this case, you can see Bob. He actually took his phone out and he went in front of a place, and I actually like added a 30-second narrative. The video narratives are easy to add into a listing, so make sure you do that. So simply go to your listing studio, add that in. That's an easy add-on. Basically, instead of just posting a picture of your listing, add a narrative to the listing before it goes live, and it will do magic, because you're adding your own sauce. You're telling a story about that listing. And NAR did a study last year. In that study, they asked people, what is your number one? They asked sellers specifically, what is your number one reason using a realtor or hiring a realtor? 65% of the respondents said, I'm looking for marketing beyond the MLS.
Absolutely.
So marketing beyond the MLS means simply social media, means anything that's not on the MLS, simply because the days on market are increasing. So you add a listing to the MLS, it just sits there. There's other homes, there are a ton of other homes that are competing with that listing. So you have to get creative. You have to do as much as you can to do this right? So obviously you can do staging, you can do all sorts of things, but those are expensive. Those are time expensive and money expensive, both, right? So you want to do as much as you can digitally. So use the flyers, use everything. And honestly, use that listing as a platform to showcase that you are an agent too, right? So use the listing, go with the camera. You don't even have to use our tools. Just go with the camera, do a few stories around the listing. Tell me why this listing is so special, and sell the neighborhood really rather than the actual home. That's another thing that we keep seeing across the board. Selling the neighborhood is always better and easier than selling the home itself, because, well, you can just tell me what's in here, like it's accessible to this and that, and that's really powerful. It's really helpful. So these are the things that we've seen across the board in terms of marketing it. So use all the tools at your disposal to do better job of it. There are listing ads that you can do with us or any other vendor out there. These listing ads are also not a bad way to generate leads. Essentially, listing ads, you can get super low cost per result on listing ads. I can show you something from our presentations, but essentially with listing ads, you have a relatively low cost per lead. Not only you generate leads for that specific listing, you get a lot more buyers, so you can do business with them down the road. We've seen listing ads costing a lot less. Let me show you this slide that we have that is basically around the cost per leads for different ads that we see. So most of us are really picky about seller leads, and we're like, well, we want to get what's my home worth ad out there. And you've seen this ad like for the past 10 years. They work, but your cost per lead is around $30 per lead. Okay. If you change that with a similar narrative, but keep it around sellers, you can go with wondering what your neighbors are selling at. That brings your cost per lead substantially to about $20. But honestly, the most affordable type of ad is still listing ads. So simply pick a listing that you have or a listing from your brokerage, run an ad on that listing. You can even do this pay as you go, as low as like $70 or $80 a month, a week, or 10 days. It's basically $7 per lead, at $7 per day, the minimum spend. But listing ads are super powerful because they are about where you are and what you do. And that seller is going to be super happy because you've generated so many leads for them.
Mhm.
You're going to get people that are actually looking at that listing, and you can also turn them into buyers, or sometimes buyers have to sell something too. So you get lots of different things with it. So my advice is go with listing ads as well. That's always a good option. Try it, right? Just try like $70, $80, $100. Don't overspend. See where that takes you, and then kind of take it to the next part from there.
Awesome.
So yeah, these are my couple cents, more than 2 cents, but yeah.
No, that's
Couple
great,
cents on it.
Sam. No, thank you. I think that's awesome. There's a couple of things I wanted to ask you about this, because we're hearing two things. One is that some top agents are doing little mini micro campaigns every, 5 to 7 days so that they keep it fresh. And that way, you've got a plan for content that's simple. Like you said, Bob's in front of the house talking about one thing one day, and then the next micro campaign is a week later and he's talking about another piece, but perhaps he shot it all in the same session or whatever. I don't know, but you know what I mean? What do you think about that idea?
That's always a great idea. I think just make content creation easy.
Mhm.
So just dedicate an hour or so. I've seen realtors taking the jacket off, switching dresses in front of the camera, changing the background as if they were actually creating the content in different areas, but it could be the same thing.
Yeah, for sure.
So use all the tools that we give you. Just simply create more local presence and with your face on it. That's the key for getting more engagement on social media. Because if you don't have your face, like the engagement just drops.
Yeah,
Right.
no, I can imagine. The other thing I'll mention to everybody too, that, as a reminder, be sure that whatever it is you're doing, you're letting your seller know. Because, you might think you're running an ad and they can see it. Well, they probably won't. So remember that whatever you're doing on social, whatever you're doing with the neighbors, whatever you're doing with, they're going to know they're having an open house. But do you know what I mean? Like everything you should be presenting as you go to your seller as well, because to Sam's point, if their number one reason for hiring you is to make sure that they're getting off MLS marketing activity, this is what you want to make sure that you're weekly giving them an update and making sure they see all of that's good stuff. So And, you know, especially if you're doing something fresh or if you're, you know, I mean, honestly, there's just so much that you could be doing. And we'll talk about some more of that today. Do you guys want to talk at all about some of the old school stuff that seems to be working again, like open houses? Should we talk about
Yeah.
that a little bit?
Yeah.
Because there's some fresh ideas about how to do an open house. But we're hearing a lot of agents saying that they are doing them on the regular again, which, as you know, not so much over the last couple of years. So what do you think?
Well, I'll tell you why they're doing them on the regular now. Number one, the sellers expect it, but number two, there's a lot of unrepresented buyers that are showing up to these open houses.
Yeah.
So they want to catch those buyers that don't have an agent. That's one of the reasons. But also, I think if you don't get out there and do at least 3 different types of open houses, you're not doing your job for that seller. So Sam, I don't know if you want to touch on this, but there's a whole bunch of different ways. And the first one is to roll out that launch party, which is, you know, your listing is finally coming out, but you've got to create a buzz. You can't just put some balloons on the mailbox. You've got to put like 12 signs out. You've got to send out Facebook ads, email blast. And I know people hate to hear this, but door hangers. You go to all the adjoining neighborhoods and say open house that's coming. So you got to do a little work to create that buzz. But some of the things they're doing is they're having a mocktail bar or an actual slushy bar or a shake bar to be healthy. Think about food trucks you can bring in. Also, you can bring in an actual entertainment of some sort. One of the things I really like is the teach and learn open house. Maybe you have a neighborhood that is first time buyers. You bring your lender in to teach how do they buy a house in that open house. But don't forget this one. This is an old one, Sam. You ready? Hold your,
Yes.
I'm going to excite you here. It's called the progressive open house, which means every house in the neighborhood that is for sale, and they're not all going to be yours, guys. They're going to be other agents. You're actually going to get with the other agents. And it's kind of like the old timey progressive dinners. And y'all may not remember this, but one house would start with an appetizer and the buyers move through that one. And then
Oh,
the
it's like
next,
bar hopping.
Yes,
it's like
exactly.
bar hopping. It's like down there in Key West. If you've done that Duval Street, it's kind of like that. So then the next house has what, a couple of drinks, maybe mocktails. Then the next house has salads. Next house has the main deal, and the next one has desserts, and the next one has actual coffees. Now, if you only have 3 or 4, you're going to have to squish that together. But will it keep those
I love
buyers
that idea.
moving if they can see more than one house in the neighborhood they want to move into? They can rapidly see all of them. How many of you think, yes, that beats
I've
coming
done
back
that a
3
ton of
different
times as a
times?
buyer agent, a lot of
Yeah.
times. So I've
This
just
is like
and
self-guided.
lined up open houses.
This is a self-guided tour
This
version.
is self-guided, but the other thing that
Just
I
make
was
sure
going
you
to
have
talk
your rep form signed, right, Ginger, ahead of time?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, the big problem with people with open houses for agents is they don't do the background work to get people to them. You can't just put up signs. You've got to do all of that Sam was talking about. And that includes making videos of yourself. Hey, this is where the dessert's going to be. This is where the, you know, the mocktails are going to be, and liquor if you're, you know, if your seller's
And
going to
that
let you
does
do
give
that.
you more seller guys. Like the
Yeah,
moment you
yes,
actually
liquor
do
might
that,
get them in there, but we might have some risk there. So we have to think about that. So, you
yeah,
know,
I
doing
think
something really
once
different today, you've got to just can't have the
Yeah.
Plano Jano open house anymore.
I will say, guys, the other thing, and we talked about this morning in our coaching session, one of the other ideas is to partner with some local vendors, restaurants.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And do it together. You know, save yourself some money, work with a local. Maybe every house is also a different restaurant or a different whatever, and you guys can each feature what they do. So it saves you a bunch of money. Maybe split it with them or whatever, but just have some fun with this stuff. I think that's half the battle for sure.
Yeah,
So-
have a
very
vendor that
interesting.
does cupcakes do the dessert house, and they're in
Exactly.
there giving away their coupons and whatever they're
Yeah.
doing. So, you know, you've just got to work with the community to get them to help you with this.
Right. Awesome.
Something
Well,
interesting that I've seen technological wise, like so here's what an agent did with our landing pages was this. So simply they took a landing page that was your home buying guide
Mhm.
to be have. So just take this landing page, they put it attached to a QR code. They printed a sheet at the open house saying, scan this for a free home buying guide.
There you
And
go.
in that landing page, we generate the lead. We then call that person and book an appointment with our AI caller for that realtor. So not only you're generating leads at the open house, we also call them for you and we nurture them in the long run. So we assign them to a buyer journey and we send them videos. But the whole point is find a way to get them off just a typical phone number, which everyone gives you, to an actual form where they opt in to be called and texted. And that
made
adds
me,
value. We've seen that. But there has to be some kind of raffle. There has to be, like, we've seen realtors saying, well, there's a $50 Starbucks card, or there is like a $25 Starbucks card, whatever it is. Scan this. We're going to send you buyer guides, but also we're going to enroll you into follow-up calls. Because the number one problem we see is you're going to get this list of people at the open house. If you're lucky and you can get people to open house, then you don't do anything with them. Like, you call them, they don't pick up. But the reality is they might not be buying at a specific house, but they could become a lead source in your database. So you can just continuously nurture them in the long run.
That's a great.
They're now in your database. They're now part of your sphere. So
yeah. And we've seen this across the board.
I think nurturing is one of the most missed opportunities with a lot of real estate agents, unfortunately, even today with all the tools that we have. So I think that's a really, really critical point that you
So we
made.
did a fun survey last year. 500,000 leads that we generated. He did a survey to our agents, and we asked them, did you call these leads? Did you follow up with them? Only 3% did. So,
well, I can speak to that. I buy investment homes, and I sometimes will call off a Zillow. And the first day I will be bombarded with calls, Sam. And then I never hear from them again. They don't know if I didn't buy it. They have no clue because they never followed up. If you don't follow up, it's going to be hard for you to maintain this business. It's follow up, follow up, follow up.
So out of the 3% that do follow up, 44% give up after the first call. So they call you, they don't pick up. They're like, okay, it's a bogus lead. They just do it away.
The top producers that I have been coaching and teaching throughout the years, this is what they tell me, guys. They don't stop calling until Sam says, don't call me anymore. And they said, when they say, don't call me anymore, that's when I give up. And they are the ones that are the top producing agents.
Yeah.
And I was looking at Mike Ferry's playbook this like ages ago. The playbook says it like this. You got to call me 3 times. Once at 7 a.m., once at noon, once at 6 p.m. And you're going to call me 3 days like this. So 9 calls. It's insane.
Right.
But that's how he got.
But no one does it. No one does it is the problem.
Yeah.
It's really hard to do consistently. I mean, there's a ton of tools like our AI caller that does it for you now. But again, even the job of that is not to have real conversations, just to set an appointment. So you actually sit down with them and do have the conversation afterwards.
Yeah. Yep. Awesome. Well, I couldn't agree more. Let's talk a little bit, guys, about 2 parts of this process that I think would be really valuable for everyone. One is how to problem proof the listing ahead of time. So what is it that you guys can do to make sure, I'll leave it open to you, but what can we do to problem proof a listing before it hits the MLS? What would you guys say?
Pre-inspection, so we know what we're up against. I know a lot of sellers don't like this, but I think it's better to know before we stick it on the market, what is the average inspector going to find in that home? And, the other things is looking at, is it a quirky floor plan that's not normal? How are we going to set our language for that? Are we going to say something about a home with a twist? Who wants a cookie cutter floor plan? I mean, we have to be looking at what is the most objectable things in that home, and can we get them turned around before we ever list that home? I think that's one of the biggest things. And one thing that I would say to all of you, if you are dealing with homes that have objectionable things, there might be something in there. They're like, I can't live with that kitchen. You heard that before, Sam? I can't live with that bathroom. No way can I live with that. All of you should partner up with the best renovation lender in town. There are good renovation lenders, and then there are subpar ones. Find one that can make that loan work so that you would be able to say, well, you know what? I can put you with a lender that we can fix that kitchen, because that's going to make a difference, right? What do you think, Sam?
absolutely.
I think for years, brokerages like Compass and companies like Kirby did this, where they're offering the kind of MLS or pre-selling like renovations, and it does work. It's just a little bit riskier for sellers to do it right now, because it's a tougher market. So if you can just offer the same thing to the buyer, I think that there's a potential there to also say, well, you can always partner up with this company that does it for you, and
Oh, absolutely.
here's how much it will cost.
It's
Here's
exactly.
what I'm sorry. Here's what NAR said the other day. Are y'all ready? I think it was, and it may not have been NAR, so don't hold me to that. Someone said if they walk in and they're a buyer, Sam, and all they see is work, work, more work, more work, and more work, they're gone. Because most of them, not all, but most of them do not have the funds to do that work, nor do they have the aspiration to do that work. So if you can find a way with a lender that can help those buyers see something else with a little bit of a different loan, you might be able to move that property easier. Sam, do you think that makes a little bit of sense?
Oh yeah, indeed.
The
So
other
we have a
thing.
question.
Oh, sorry.
We have
Go
an
ahead, Sam.
interesting question from Donna and Tammy. So Tammy, well, it's great to see you. It's been a while. So Tammy's asking, can we focus back on selling the listing without actually lowering the price? Because, well, everyone
Yes.
tells you convince the seller to lower the price.
That's our next topic, actually.
Yeah,
So
we're
if we
getting
all
to
had a
that,
magic
Tammy.
wand
Hang
for that.
on.
almost, Tammy, 2 more minutes.
Hang on, Tammy.
While we're still, because we have Sam for a limited time today, so we're trying to deal with all the marketing stuff first. But Sam, what we wanted to talk about next, if you don't mind, and then we're definitely going to jump into that. But I will say one thing. The other thing to think about, using tools that are now available to us. There are AI tools that will show a post-reno design. So what your kitchen will look like. It's not a staging tool, it's actually a design tool. And that would allow you to actually show what this could look like, and hopefully maybe that alone would deal with the objection. So something to think about. So even if you can't pay for it, at least you can help them visualize it. So
Yeah.
something, but let's talk just for 1 more minute before we jump into the slashing the price conversation. What top agents are doing to double down on proactive lead generation instead of waiting for traffic?
Well, number one, they should be looking at their demographics, at all the rentals in the area. Because remember, whatever that rental price is, it's ×3 that they have to make to qualify to live in that rental. So they may, now not every single time, Sam's looking at me like, are you crazy? Not every single time will they qualify. But a lot of times people are living in very expensive townhomes, very expensive rentals, and you could target that demographic and mail out, this is my listing that's coming up. This is what the payment would look like with a certain percent down, so that they could know, hey, wait a minute, I'm living over here in this apartment with a 2-car garage and paying a ridiculous amount, and I might be able to come over and buy this house. So you're proactively sending things out to people that could be in the buying market. So you're targeting a list. You got to pick the right demographic, because if they don't make the right amount of money, that would not make any sense. So you'd have to look at how expensive is the apartment, how expensive is your home, and does that align with each other? Because it makes no sense if it doesn't align.
That's a good example. That's a great example of how to use stats, I think, and it may not work in your market, but consider the fact that the most important thing is to consider what are your stats and how you can use them. That's a really good way to do that.
If you're in Canada right now, the interest rates are coming down. So obviously with interest rates coming down, it would make more sense now again to start back into buying, and the payments are not as crazy anymore.
Right.
So just for your reference, Ginger, we're looking at 3% again here. It's a 4%
Wow, I'm moving over there. They're not
Yep, come on over.
7% here today, over 7% today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we had a
things
three.
are
I had
shifting.
I had a client securing a 3.5%. I was like, wow, this
Awesome, Sam. That's great.
yeah.
Now,
So
with that said,
Mhm.
I was just reading about the builders, their inventory. They're not going to be putting out as much inventory in some areas because they're just not getting the traffic. And that is one of the biggest competitors a lot of sellers have is
Right.
new homes. So, less inventory on new homes with less concessions and
Mhm.
less, they're actually doing buy down still. And they're also doing 5% loans when we can get a 7% loan.
Right.
So if there's less of that, that's going to help sellers too, as that compresses down.
True. So let's finish up proactive lead gen here. Sam, is there anything you wanted to talk about? We've got a couple of other ideas here on Ginger's list, but how about you? Is
I
there
think
anything?
I think we just go back to the same thing. Like what we've seen before working really well was this as well. So where we had realtors taking a listing off the market, doing a campaign of coming soon
Mhm.
1 week before it hits the market again. So just do an active campaign of coming soon in that area. You're gonna get a lot of people that want to see what that listing is
Mhm.
and then relaunch it. So
Right.
we've seen this, but you need 2 weeks for in between. So
Yeah.
this
Some
gives a new
places
life
it's
to the
longer.
listing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some it's 30 days.
Some it's 30, but what they'll know in their area. But that's a really
Yeah.
good point because we call that sort of the power of relaunch marketing. So
Yeah.
reframing the listing as a refresh, not a reduced, which is part of this whole
Yeah.
conversation.
And I mean, you can get like a
You know.
little bit price decrease. It's like I'm sure a seller comes down like 10K or
Sure.
something. But
Well,
yeah,
that's something
that
I
way.
wanted to say after Sam said that. I always say if you're going to refresh, they've got to have done something. Maybe they cleaned up the front yard a little better. Maybe they painted the front door. Or to Sam's point, they did reduce it and now it's more like a bidding war because it's been relaunched at a price that more and more people will be more activity. Don't you agree, Sam? There has to be something.
Yeah, definitely.
Ginger, how about we had a couple more quick ideas on proactive lead gen. Do you want to just whip through those quick so we can at least?
Yeah, you're going to like this one, Sam. Hosting parties for agents. So you gather up agents within 30 minutes or 30 miles, whichever way. You might be in the 30-mile deal if you're out in the country. And all of those agents, you have this huge bash. This is only for agents. And they come and they make videos of themselves throughout the house. They are actually touring the home outside, inside. They are posting those with hashtags that you can track. Whoever gets the most likes wins a great prize from one of your vendors. Whoever gets the most activity, feedback gets another prize. You have to get together with your vendors to get these agents to want to come. Some of these agents are actually getting a bus. They're getting a vendor to rent a bus. All these agents go on the bus and they make it a party, Sam, all the way there, all the way back. And what you're really getting out of this is every one of those agents is posting your listing, but they're also doing what? They're promoting themselves. Does that make sense? And there's a chance of a great prize, but it's also what? Community, being with the other agents. People love big, Sam, nobody doesn't like to get on a bus. And I'm sure there might be some drinking involved. Do y'all think that could be happening?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Another one is neighborhood opportunities, guys. Look for as many neighborhood opportunities as you can. HOA newsletter, presentation. You can run a pickleball tournament. You can do an educational session like we talked about before, but there's lots of ways to do proactive lead gen at any of those types of events too. And that's your community, obviously. So not only are you doing that, but you're acting as a community leader, which we want you to be doing as well.
All right, guys. So I'm gonna leave you guys with
you gotta go.
Sabina and Ginger. They're gonna tell you a lot of great things. Remember, HIVEOLOGY is a big partnership with roomvu. So in case you want to enroll into their courses and so on, it would be a great value add. And the link to sign up at HIVEOLOGY is underneath the YouTube video. We will be doing more of these as we go. There is a success session scheduled for tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific. So if you're an existing roomvu client, we do a success session where we teach you all these market tools and things. So join that. And with that, I just want to thank you everyone for joining. And Sabina is going to take you through the next part, which is more exciting, which is basically offline things that are actually done with humans. So yes. All right.
Thanks,
Thank
Sam.
you.
Thanks, Sam.
Awesome.
Take care. All right, everybody. So we want to talk a little bit about the big question, how to reposition a home without slashing a price. So Ginger, we've got loads of ways that you can do this. So I want everybody to please throw your questions still into the chat. Our team is still keeping an eye on those. So anything you need to know, feel free to still ask us some questions. But why don't we start, Ginger, with what you think are some of the better ways to do that?
Well, I want everybody to think about the cost it takes for a buyer to get into a house today. So instead of slashing the price, because slashing the price does not help them with what it takes to come to the closing table. So if we think about offering some closing costs, it doesn't have to be all of it, it could be part of it. We also could offer a buy down of some sort so that they can, maybe get a buy down to 6%. You'd have to look at the cost of that before you offer it. And then so many buyers out there don't have a huge down payment today. And there were sellers that were very critical. They're like, well, they don't have enough money down. If they can get a loan, I would say to sellers, it doesn't matter what they have down. At the end of the day, you're going to get what you get at the closing. So don't be so critical about down payments. And then, of course, all types of loans, FHA, VA, and conventional, if your house is in condition for those types of loans. And then don't forget, maybe you cover some of the actual inspection fees, the survey fees, some of those fees that they have to do, escrow fees. There's a lot of buyers that don't even understand it's not just a down payment and closing. There's so many due diligence things with your inspections, surveys, if there's any repairs. The other thing I would say, if you're willing to do some repairs, because I realize it's not the seller's job, but if you're willing, you should put that out there, because a lot of people, when they look at a home and they see it needs repairs, they may pass it up because they're like, we don't have that repair money. So think about a pre-list inspection sheet, maybe offering a one-time only closing cost, and you have a marketing piece that says for 30 days only, we'll add some closing costs. Make it like, hey, this is something that's a one-time thing for us, so that you can get some
Ginger, I'm sorry to
activity.
interrupt you, but I wanted to make sure everybody understood, what you're saying. It ties back to what we said before about, this idea of doing micro campaigns.
Right.
That's a really awesome idea. Like, this is a way for you to layer in different grades or bundle options or value adds or whatever you want to call it, but keep it changing so that we create scarcity a little bit too.
And I would not hand all of that over at one time, guys. Don't stack all that up at one time. And to Sabina's point, let's do a little email campaign. Okay, this week is about closing. Next week is about a buy down, but you're not offering both of those. It's a switch out. You missed your opportunity on the buy down because that 30 days is passed, especially if you're in a market that it's taking 6 months. And I want y'all to know there's a market over by me that is taking 12 months. Say it with me, 12 months. So you could have to do a lot of these type of things, but people get a misperception. They think just dropping the price helps the seller, but we've got to remember, what is the cost at the closing table the seller has to bring? Some of this makes better sense for the sellers to actually look at your home more productively. And I want to say one thing that people do not think about. Let's say you've had a buyer that's been to your home and they did not make you an offer, but yet the agent said, oh, they really loved it. They're just not ready yet. I want you guys to talk to your sellers about making an offer to them. Why can't you, the seller, put together an offer and present it to the buyer? Sometimes that will move them off of ground zero. They weren't quite ready, but now they see your offer and maybe it makes sense to them. So think about that. Sometimes they won't make an offer because they're like, oh, they won't take what we're wanting or whatever. So think about making reverse offers to the buyers, and with some good little money saving things that are going to help them get in that home.
Well, this
Does
is
that make sense to everybody?
This is also the refresh concept in another way too, right? So you've
Yes.
refreshed the listing by doing that, exactly what you've just described. So why not go back and do reverse prospecting to people that were interested before?
Yeah,
Makes
everybody that
sense.
saw that house, you
Yeah.
should go back, and if your seller is willing, now
Mhm.
keep in mind, I would call the agent of that buyer and say, do they have any
Mhm.
interest anymore? Because you don't want to be doing this 42 times. You know, if they have zero interest, you want to make sure they have an interest. And if they do, and that agent is just saying to you, well, they're just not quite ready yet.
Mhm.
Well, let's see if we can't nudge them along.
Yeah, awesome. I think those are all really good ones. So, we're talking about, instead of slashing the price, you've got all this value layering that you just talked about. So all of these different incentives and bundling upgrades and all that good stuff, reverse prospecting. We've talked about refresh announcements, ways to go to market that just refresh, maybe with a small cost adjustment, but like we said, you can always add goodies instead.
Right.
Maybe talk a little bit about how you use story and lifestyle and why that matters so much when you're doing to reframe the conversation.
Remember, most people are not buying a house, they're buying a lifestyle. So, this is an idea that I've seen used for other things, but I want to run this by you guys. You can set up Alexa or any of those things you talk to. What are the other ones, Sabina? There's Alexa and
There's
when you
everything these days.
everything you can imagine. Now, this is going to blow your mind. You can get those at pawn shops for almost nothing. How about that, guys? So here's what I would do. I would have them set up all over the house. You've got to have the seller's permission. And you have a cue card that says, what is it your seller loved about this backyard? What did your seller love about this community? And it's actually the seller's voice selling this home to them. So that who knows that home better than anybody in that community? Maybe they talk about the schools, maybe they talk about the theater down the road, or even better, people don't think about this. Nobody wants to drive more than 30 minutes to work today. That's it, 30 minutes. Maybe they talk about how it's such a quick route to the major employers. You could put that in the garage. Oh, you're about to leave for work. It's only going to be 30 minutes to Exxon. You know what I'm saying? So, how many of you think them hearing it out of their mouths makes a difference? It's actually the seller helping you sell that home. And then, of course, you guys should get out and make videos like Sam was talking about. Go out and make them at the actual attractions, the community attractions. If you've got a beach, and most of us are not that lucky, but if you have a beach, you should go up and down the beach, show where you can eat, show the places you can go have a drink, show the golf courses, and then just have little pieces of the house attached with it. And don't forget, your face is important in there. So you're showing the lifestyle, and you could do several of those. To Sam's point, if you want to change your clothes 5 times in that video, you could make that happen. And then you've got what, 5 different weeks of videos to refresh that whole thing.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I think in the end, we all know what you said is probably the most important thing is that they're buying a lifestyle. The house
Right.
comes with that lifestyle for sure, but they're really buying that lifestyle. So you want to be focusing on anything to do with that. Include stories where you can, particularly in the actual marketing descriptions. This will reset buyer perception, or at least
Yes.
go a long way to do that. So that's something you should be doing anyway, frankly, in all of your listings and marketing descriptions, but that's an awesome point. Okay,
Well, you
so
know what else people don't think about? And NAR came out with this study. The younger generation, which is the millennials and the Gen Zs, will give up a home's features for the actual community, where a boomer will do away with the community to get the home they want. So you guys really have to think about, who am I working with? So what is it that's so important to them? And you need to nail that in your videos.
honestly, I think that is probably one of the most important things we need to consider. That could completely change the way you write your story, the way that
Oh,
you're
yeah.
focusing on lifestyle. So I'm sure most of you already know this, but really truly understanding who your buyers are in that community is job number one. I want to
Absolutely.
show Ginger, I'm thinking I'll just take a second here and show everybody the tool that we created for today.
Sure.
That you guys might like this resource. I want to just give you a quick visible sort of description of it. I'm not going to go through the whole thing because it's 20 pages or so. but we built an AI marketing prompt pack for you. This is specifically designed for fast marketing fixes for slow listings. So this is for printables and prospecting. And you will go through this and see what we've done here. And I apologize, I hope that's not too small, guys. I didn't want to, can you even see that? Hang on, make it bigger. There we go.
There you go.
You guys can, so for instance, the very first page is reframe the home through buyer psychology. This is a really interesting piece. So the prompt is here. You can just paste in the listing details and put it in whichever of your GPTs you prefer. And then we show you why it works. And this will help you at least shorten the amount of time it takes for you guys to reframe some of the stuff that you're working on. And you'll see you can go through this, and every page is a different prompt to help you in some form. So this is create authority-driven social media series. Another way that, for instance, that you can go through that. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but you guys have access to this. It is also, I'm hoping somebody is dropping the link also into the chat for you, but if they don't, I'll give you that in 2 seconds. In fact, I'll do that right now. Hang on.
This is a great tool.
Yeah,
just
it's
remember
awesome.
when you're using this tool, who is your audience?
Right.
And for people to say, well, how do I know who the buyer is? Go
Right.
pull the demographics on RPR of that neighborhood.
Right.
Who is living in that neighborhood? What age group and what income range? And that will help you set this up.
Absolutely. So if you guys would, we can either put in a link. So hopefully somebody will do that. I don't recall what it is offhand, but I'll get it to you in 2 seconds. I have it in my notes. But the other thing you can do is at the end of the session, just fill out our little feedback form. If you take this QR code or just go to the short URL here at the bottom, that is gohive.info/FF hard to sell, that will go straight to us. Takes literally a minute to fill out our feedback form, but we'll also then have your email and we can send everything to you too. So that would be the quickest way, and also help us. So we'd appreciate that. But I just wanted to make sure you guys saw that that's one of your bonuses for today. So sorry, little intermission there.
That was a cool bonus.
A little intermission. I think so. We put a lot of work into that. We really wanted to make sure that everybody had some really solid AI prompts. So if we can here, let's take a second and talk about, how do you talk to sellers? What kind of language are you using for resetting seller expectations without losing the listing? Because we know this is coming, and a lot of people haven't had to deal with this for a very long time. We've had a really strong market for a lot of years. So talk about that.
So we all know if it's not selling, they tend to blame us. So we don't want that to happen. So I would first listen to them with empathy, because maybe they had their heart set on getting a certain amount of money to move to their next destination. And now it's becoming clear to them that's not going to happen. And that's a bad place when that's becoming clear to them. So I would sit down and talk to them about, we know you have a lot of memories. We know you love this home, but we also have to look at it. How is the buyer perceiving these homes? Yeah. And one thing I always do at the beginning of a listing, I take those people through their competition. And I'm not talking about on an iPad. I literally set up previews and we go to all the other homes so they can clearly see their competition. And then I show them the expireds, I show them the withdrawns and the solds and the pendings. And then we may have to come back together and say, okay, clearly this home is not hitting the mark. So what else can we do? I know you may be upset, but I want you to view this home through a buyer's eyes. And, just saying that to them and having empathy for them, I think makes a huge difference. Yeah. The other thing I want you to say to them, and people really get a little crappy about this, but just listen. The deal today is every buyer that is in a younger set expects an HGTV experience. So if they've been watching all of those types of shows, Chip and Joanne and whatever the heck else is out there, and they're showing what kind of homes, Sabina, what do you see when you look at that? Are they beautiful? Are they actually beautiful furniture? Everything's impeccable.
In the after they are, yes.
Yeah, well, some of them even in the beginnings, especially if they're like,
this is true.
So
depends
if
on the
that's
show, but
what
yes,
they're expecting,
right,
And most of us don't live that. Raise your hand if most of us don't live that actual lifestyle.
Well, and Ginger, this is based on NAR research, is it not? That the buyers
Yes,
are
it is.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So that's where you may have to have that really hard conversation that says, okay, we've had the house on the market for 60 days now. You know, you didn't want to stage it at the beginning, and we've tried to do some virtual or some AI staging. It may be time to think about doing that staging if you don't want to lower your price so that we can get these people in the door. And as long as you have empathy and you say, I understand this is what you love your lazy boy. Nobody loves lazy boys. Y'all know that, right? They do not show up well on pictures. How many of you know that? So we need a little sleeker look. So I think having that conversation, but bring your data. You have got to bring the data that shows. Like if you go and buy the analytics off your showing platforms, it will show, have people been liking that house? Have they been going back to it? What houses in the neighborhood have they been liking? And if there's one in particular or two in particular that have been getting a ton of likes, it's time to go back over there and let's look. What is it? Is it the furniture? Is it staged? What's about that house that's not happening in your house? So I think really being honest with them. And the other thing I always like to say to people is, I would rather be totally honest with you than disappoint you. Because if you're not totally honest with them, they're going to be disappointed at some point with you. So being honest with them and saying, I'm sorry, you know, the market is shifting quickly. You should be doing CMAs every 2 weeks because that's how fast the market is shifting in some areas. So bring that with you when you can say, I want you to see what's happening. You know, very quickly things are changing, but let's go see what we can do to remedy this. So you still want to look collaborative with them. You don't want to be negative. You don't want to talk down to them. You want to make sure they understand, I am here to help you.
Yeah.
And the one word that we hear all the time out there in the market right now, and you can just ask them, have you heard the word uncertainty? That is the word of this decade, I think, or actually of this year. Everybody's a little uncertain about what's about to happen. So buyers are a little hesitant. So we need to help them as much as we can want to take that next step. And, you know, some of that is looking around your home and not having to do much because they're afraid to spend their money.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
I think those are all awesome. We only have a couple minutes left here, so I wanted to just make sure we cover off a couple of the things that we said we would. So let me, before we get into this next question, I wanted to ask you something because I think one of the things that's always so critical with everything is timing. And we know a couple of things, and for instance, one of the things that your listing could be the reason why your listing isn't moving is because it wasn't the best first impression.
Right.
And part of that is having this conversation with your seller ahead of time. So it's kind of a two-part question. So my question to you, Ginger, is this. We know that the first 3 photos, for instance, on a listing determine 80% of your traffic. We know this, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So that is your first impression. This means that, you know, a couple of things are critical. Obviously, it relates to that. But I also ask you this question in sort of your conversations with your sellers. Should we, at the very beginning, be sort of coaching them to, you know, understanding that this market has changed?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
instead of going back to them after the first 30 days and saying, okay, we need to sort of reframe
We
this.
should be proactive. We are
Yeah.
having these conversations at our listing appointment.
Mhm.
But remember, everybody's very optimistic at their listing appointment. And everybody thinks, well, I'm not going to have to do those things because my house is so pretty and I love it. And of course they do. But then it sits. And then remember, when we do go back with that data, we can say, well, remember, we talked about this at the listing, that those first moments online are so critical. And you can have the best photographer in America or Canada, and those photographs just don't show well. So it may be a matter of moving things around in their house. Just so you guys know, there are people out there that take everything in their home and move it around for a better look. that saves money too if they don't have the money for that.
Yeah.
So that's something to think about. Have somebody that takes everything they have and they move it around and they move out what they think won't work to give it a whole new look. And I don't want to scare anybody, but you might have got a bad photographer. That does happen too. So maybe it's the angles, maybe it's the lighting, maybe you need to start over on that.
Yeah.
So, but being proactive with them, that way, when you do have to go back and have that hard conversation one more time, they're not surprised. Nobody likes surprises.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think that, it tells us that, first of all, first impressions are critical. So make sure that whatever you're doing, whether it's your photos, your marketing language, or your listing language, or whatever it is, the first 30 seconds is what you really want to be focused on. So one of the takeaways that we want to send to you today is do an audit of your existing listings.
Yes.
And make sure, because it doesn't matter. You don't need to, like, a lot of agents are still putting up listings with the first photo is the front of the house. Maybe the front of the house isn't the sexiest part of the house. Maybe you need to do the bathroom or, whatever, but keep that in mind. You don't have to do anything sequentially. Go crazy, have some good fun with this, and make sure that whatever it is, you capture them, make a great first impression, and then that will hopefully lead them into the rest of what you have to offer.
I think you made a good point. People are so stuck that the front of the house has to be the first picture. I was leasing a house not too long ago, and the backyard was killer. It had a gorgeous pool, had all kinds of decks, everything you can imagine. That was what leased that home.
Yeah.
So that was front and center. So what is it in that house that should be front and center? And it may not be the front of the house.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We've talked a lot about sort of ways to create urgency in a slow market, things like using deadlines. We talked about value stacking in different ways and creating limited offer opportunities. We've talked about giving bonuses or prizes to brokers and agents. We've got lots of fun stuff that we've talked about today. Staging is one that's come up many, many times here. So I can't help but say that seems to be one of the most important pieces. And to your point, I love that you said that you can reorganize what they already have instead of spending a lot of money on taking out and bringing in new. Maybe that's
put that lazy boy in the bedroom.
Maybe that's just a much cheaper way to do that for everybody if we're dealing with a situation.
Yeah, it costs money. We all know that.
Yeah.
Another thing for y'all to think about doing is having that house only open on Saturdays from 1 to 4. That's it. They can't see it during the week. Now you have to really talk with your client about this because maybe you're going to create a little bit of a buzz. It's only open 1 to 4. You can't do this forever, guys. Maybe you do this for a month. And then what? There's going to be hopefully a lot of people coming between that 1 to 4. They're going to see each other. But not only that, does it give your seller a break? Because we all know it is stressful to have your house on the market. Right. So it's just another technique. You're kind of staging a little bit of urgency with making it just 1 to 4. It's not an open house. It's actually, you could put an open house with it. But what you're saying is this is the only time you can see this house. Now you're gambling there, so you have to really talk that over with your seller, whether they like that idea or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very interesting one too. The other thing is, and we literally have 1 more minute, I'm going to say this, the bonus link that I just talked about, don't forget, do the feedback form. We will also send you an email, but you can also go to the following bonus link. It is GoHive, GoHive.info/AI fast. That's all you need. Throw that in there and you're going to go straight to that resource that we just showed you. I think that since we're running out of time here, I think we've covered most of it. If anybody has any last questions, throw it in and we'll try to do one more. But we've covered off everything. The only thing I would say that we maybe haven't talked about is the misalignment between list price and buyer expectations. How to spot it early.
Real quick,
because we only have 1 minute literally. So give us your best.
They may have paid over. Unfortunately, they may not get that back. The other thing they're not understanding is even though their appreciation was 15% for 2 years, that is not what it is any longer, probably. So going through with them, what is the appreciation now and what are buyers willing to pay? So I think them knowing that, unfortunately, that's probably not sustainable.
I think that's a really good point. So look for misalignment early, really important. And then use your data, There's nothing more important than your data and analytics in supporting anything that you have to say. So please make sure you've got a good source of data in your neighborhood. If you haven't done that, that's one of those things that Ginger is awesome at. So if you contact us, we'll help you with that too. So I think that's it for today. We should probably wrap up because we are at the last moment here. So thank you, Ginger, for all of your wonderful advice as always. Appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, our pleasure, of course. And everybody have a wonderful week and go give them hell.
That's right. Go get them.
Go get them. Take care, everybody.